Bonjour and good morning. Welcome to WASA Distance Education and PLAR English. And this is week 8 of classes. So this is the second last week of classes in term 1A. So this week and next week is all we have left in term 1A, and then we have a week, admin week, before we start in term 1B. So that means 2 more weeks till the end. So if you don't finish whatever you're working on, your lessons or your culminating activity, by the end of this term in the next 2 weeks, then keep working on it into term 1B. So you're not withdrawn if you're not finished by the end of this term. PLAR students just keep working until the end of June. 2 ways to participate in classes, radio and Zoom, and the instructions for joining classes are in your study guide. Just a reminder that all PLAR English students are welcome to attend classes, so even if you signed up for PLAR English IL, you can still attend the radio Zoom classes. The material that we cover is the same for radio and IL. To contact me, you can use email, phone, or send a message on Facebook, and all of my contact information is on the cover page of the study guide as well as each lesson, and also on the cover page of the culminating activity. The recorded classes from last year are still available on the WASA YouTube channel, and the new classes are being uploaded to WASA. Whoa, how come this won't move? There we go. So to get to the YouTube classes, go to YouTube first of all, of course, and then into the search bar, put WASA Distance Education Center. Once you've done that, then you will get a bunch of links that I guess they can think are related, but you will find our logo and our name in amongst the list. Click on our link. Once you've done that, then you will open our YouTube page, or our YouTube channel. Once you get there, you will see just a selection of random classes, not the playlists. In order to see all of the classes, recorded classes for a particular subject, you need to go to playlists. So click on playlists. Once you do that, you will find all of the different courses, subjects that WASA has offered since last year. Some of the courses are 2025, 2026, and some are 2024, 2025. So obviously the 2024, 2025 are the older classes from last year. The new ones are 2025, 2026. So there are 2 playlists there for the PLAR English. One is for the 25-26 school year, and the other one is for the 24-25 school year. So if you are ahead of where we are in class, so we're just going to be starting lesson 4 today. So if you're already working in lesson 4 or lesson 5, then go to the recorded classes for last year, the 2024-2025, because they will have that playlist will have lessons 4 and lesson 5 classes. The playlist for this year, obviously, will not have lesson 4 and lesson 5 classes because I haven't taught them yet. Okay, so just keep that in mind. If you go to the 2025, 2026 classes, you will not see lesson 4 recorded classes or lesson 5 because they're not there yet. So go to the 2024-2025 playlist. For the PLAR Math, the only playlist that is there yet, and same thing for the PLAR Science actually, the only thing that is there yet is the classes for last year, because we haven't taught the science and the math yet this year. So keep that in mind when you're looking at the playlists. Once you click on the PLAR English playlist, then the classes are organized by lesson number and key question number. So that way you can easily find the class you're looking for. So for example, PLAR English Lesson 5, Key Question 19. And they are organized from most recent. So it'll be lesson 5. So if you're working on lesson 3 or lesson 2 or something like that, you're going to need to scroll down the list further, or you can change the organization of the way it's listed there. Okay, so makes it easier for you to find the class, which class to watch if you know which key question to look for. Okay, just a reminder that at the end of Term 1A, which is coming up pretty quickly, WASA will have student draws, 2 student draws, one for students who earned a credit during the term and one for students who submit work during the term. So for every lesson that you submit, your name will be entered into the student work draw. For every credit that you earn, your name will be entered into the credit draw. So you can, with PLAR, you can get your name entered into that credit draw more than once if you finish more than one of the PLAR culminatings during the term. Okay, so just a reminder to all students that or all PLAR students, sorry, all PLAR students have the option of writing the culminating activity instead of doing the lessons and key questions. So even if you have already started working on the lessons and you've submitted some of the key questions, you can still opt out of doing the lessons and do the culminating activity instead. So if you're finding the key questions in the lessons really easy, then you can probably move on to the culminating activity, skip over the rest of the work, move on to the culminating. If you pass the culminating activity, then you get your missing credits for that subject and you can move on to the next subject. If you're not successful with the culminating activity, then you will have to go through the lessons and complete the key questions. And once you've completed the key questions successfully, you get another opportunity to write the culminating activity. Okay, so it's not just a one and done thing. You write the culminating activity as many times as you need to in order to pass it. But keep in mind, if your marks on the culminating activity are very, very low when you try it, you get a 16, 17, 20%, then it's probably better for you to do the lessons first, learn what you're having trouble with, and then try the culminating activity again after. If you do decide that you want to go through the the lessons and the key questions, so if you've been away from school for a very long time and you haven't really done much in that time you've been away from school, then it might be a good idea for you to work through the lessons. So obviously we've been working through the lessons here. As you work through the lessons, there are support questions that are scattered throughout the lessons. The support questions are there for you to do for practice before you do the key questions. So you'll read a section, there will be a support question. Do that support question, then go to near the end of the lesson right before the key questions and you will find answers to the support questions. Check your answers against the answers that are there. If you're doing really well, then you move on to the key questions. If you're struggling with the support questions, however, you need to get more help. You can either read the lesson again, you can watch the classes on YouTube, or you can contact me for help. Okay. Ways to submit your work. The first way is to give it to your DEC, who will send it out to us here in Sioux Lookout. Now, if you can't get to your learning center, or you don't have a learning center or a DEC in your community, or your DEC is away, then you can submit your own work. Just remember that if you are submitting your own work, be sure to put your name on the work. Okay, if you don't and you send it out to us, we won't know who it's coming from because sometimes your email does not match your name that you registered with, or your Facebook name doesn't match the name that you registered with if you're sending it through Facebook. So we don't know who the work is from. So make sure that you write your name on your work, or at least identify yourself when you send your work. Then, if you have access to a scanner, you can scan and email your work to studentwork@nnec nnec.on.ca. Make sure you type that email in correctly. It's studentwork, all one word, at nnec.on.ca. And then you can CC to me, B. Osmond, at nnec.on.ca. Or if you have access to a fax machine at work or at the band office or wherever, you can fax it to our toll-free number. Okay, if that doesn't work for you, you can use your smartphone. With your smartphone, you can either take photos of your work or scan your work using the built-in scanner. And then you can email it to that same student work email and CC it to me, or you can send your work using Facebook Messenger. So you can take pictures and send them on Facebook Messenger, or you can scan your work and send it on Messenger as well. If you live in Sioux Lookout or the surrounding area and you come to Sioux Lookout fairly regularly, you can stop by WASA on Front Street and drop off your work in our outdoor mailbox, which is located at the side of the building in the parking lot. Or you can ring our doorbell at the front door on Front Street and give your work to the person who answers the door. If you do stop by WASA, please come in and ask for me so that I can meet you. And then the last option is to use Google Docs to complete your work and then send me the link. Make sure, of course, that the link is shareable so that I can access your work. All right, so moving on to a review of what we covered last day. So our last class was Wednesday of last week. And last week we finished up lesson 3 looking at emails. So lesson 3 was all about practical writing. So we learned about some sentence errors and how to fix those errors. We also looked at resume writing and email writing. So email writing for professional or work or school. So with an email, most people know how to write an email, but if you're writing a professional or a formal email, and a professional or formal email goes to someone that you don't know very well, or your boss or your superior. So of course the important thing is the subject line. Okay. Then I thought I turned it back on after I sneezed. Sorry. Then your email needs to go in there. So then your information. So for the length of your email, again, be as concise as possible. Get to the point as quickly as you can, basically. I enjoyed with you today about the assistant account executive position at the Smith Agency. The job seems to be an excellent match for my skills and interests. The creative approach to account management that you described confirmed my desire to work with you. In addition to my enthusiasm, I will bring to the position strong writing skills, assertiveness, and the ability to encourage others to work cooperatively with the department. I appreciate the time you took to interview me. I am very interested in working for you and look forward to hearing from you regarding this position. Sincerely, John Smith. So, again, keep it as concise as possible. Get to the point right away. Do not use emoticons in professional emails. Smiley faces, sad faces, winky faces, whatever. Don't put them in there. Spelling and grammar. Edit very carefully before you send it. So write your email, then before you hit send, read through it. Okay, so here we have a couple of mistakes. We've got one right here, strong writing. There's no such word as strong writing. It should be strong writing skills. There needs to be a space there. And down here, thus position should be this position. So check for spelling and grammar mistakes. Then your font style, make sure that you use a neutral font that's not playful or colored or anything like that. It has to be a font that's easy to read and transferable. Okay, so make sure that the font that you use works with the other person's email system. So some don't transfer easily and you might end up with gibberish. So be very careful about that. And then of course your closing, something like sincerely or yours truly works best, with followed by a comma and then your name. Okay, so check for all those things in a formal email. The most frequent email sign-offs for a professional email, like I said, sincerely, respectfully, sincerely yours are the most common, most respectful ones. Thanks, best regards, take care, thanks so much, cheers, all the best, best wishes, and talk soon are not as professional. Those are more relaxed, more for someone that you know well or for a friend. So for professional emails, sincerely, respectfully, or sincerely yours. Okay, so that was what we did last day. So today we are starting lesson 4. And lesson 4, the focus is summarizing. So we're going to start off looking at purpose and audience. We've touched on that a little bit, but we're going to focus on it a little bit more today, and hopefully we'll get to graphic texts as well. So your learning goals are listed there, and then the introduction. Now that we have thought about how to read and respond to literary texts, which we did in lesson 2, let's look at the reasons why people write. In this lesson, we'll explore different purposes for writing. You will also have an opportunity to practice identifying the purpose, audience, and tone for different texts. It's easy to see that we read and write and communicate for different purposes and different audiences at different times. Your subject, so what you're writing about, audience, who you're writing for, and your purpose for writing, to inform, to persuade, or to entertain, all influence your choice of form. That is the type of writing, whether it's a report, a letter, or a tweet. Style and tone, how you say what you say. In this lesson, you will also learn some strategies for writing an effective summary. What is a summary? Essentially, a summary is a short text that outlines the main points of a longer text. We use summaries in our daily lives all the time. For example, has a friend ever asked you, what is the movie about? Or how did the game go? Or what happens in that book? Usually your friend will not want to replay every single line from the movie or describe every single play in the game or spend 2 hours telling them every single twist and turn from the novel. Instead, they probably want you to tell them the most important details. In the same way, when you summarize a text in this lesson, you will need to find the most important details and rewrite them in your own words. Okay, so that's a little bit about summarizing. So starting with audience, reasons for writing on page 3. So read through that material. On page 4, 3 common purposes for writing. On page 5, a few other purposes that fall under the 3 common ones. More about author's purpose on page 6. On page 7 is support question 25, and you're going to be identifying the purpose for these texts. Then on page 8, begins talking about audience. Page 9, the connection between audience and purpose. And on page 10, support question 26, identifying audience and purpose. And like I said, once you finish that key question, remember to go to the end of the lesson right before the key questions and check your answers to the support questions before you move on to the key questions. Okay, so let's get started on purposes for writing. So the author's purpose, as I mentioned already, is the reason they decide to write about something in the first place. So the why are you writing it? The different types of author's purpose are, the main 3 reasons for writing are to persuade, to inform, and to entertain. These can easily be remembered with the PI acronym. So PI, P, persuade, I, inform, E, entertain. So those are the 3 main reasons for writing anything: to persuade, to inform, or to entertain. So let's have a look at each of those separately now. So persuade. When a text is written to persuade, it will aim to convince the reader of the merits of a certain point of view. With this type of writing, the author will attempt to persuade the reader to agree with this point of view and or take a particular course of action. So when you're writing to this the author, whoever's doing the writing, wants you to look at something a certain way, to believe something in particular, or to do something. Persuasive writing is most commonly the motivation behind essays, advertisements, and political writing such as speeches and propaganda. So think about what's the purpose of political writing, speeches and propaganda? To persuade you to vote for that person. To identify when the author's purpose is to persuade, you should ask if you feel the writer is trying to get you to believe something or to take a specific action. You should learn to identify the various tactics and strategies used in persuasive writing, such as repetition, so repeating the same idea, various types of supporting evidence, hyperbole basically means exaggeration, attacking opposing viewpoints, forceful phrases, and emotive imagery and photographs, etc. So writing to persuade. Here's an example. It is recommended that parents read to their children every day, starting as early as 6 months of age. When you read with your children, you are preparing them to be lifelong learners. They are also more likely to be successful in school and in their future career. So, turn off the television and pick up a book. Okay, so starts by saying it is recommended. Well, it doesn't say by who, really, but it's just saying it is recommended. And then at the end, so telling you to do something, turn off the television and pick up a book. Okay, so trying to convince you that reading to your children, young children, every day is very important. The author is making an emotional plea to do the right thing, read. Also, the last sentence encourages the reader to take action. It's telling you to do something. So that's persuasive writing, trying to persuade you that reading is important. Okay, so writing to inform. When an author's purpose is to inform, they usually wish to enlighten their readers about a real world topic. Often they will do this by providing lots of facts. Informational texts are geared toward imparting information to the reader with the purpose of educating them on a given topic. So an informational paragraph is meant to give you information, mostly facts. Many types of school books are written with this express purpose of informing the reader. Added to textbooks, we also have encyclopedias, recipe books, and newspapers. They're all factual writing. In the process of informing the reader, the author will make use of facts. one surefire way to spot the intent to inform. However, when the author's purpose is persuasion, they will also be likely to provide the reader with some facts in an attempt to convince the reader of the merits of their particular case. The main difference between the two different ways facts are employed is that when the intention is to inform, facts are presented only to teach the reader. When the author's purpose is to persuade, they will commonly mask their opinions amid the facts. Okay, so an example of writing to inform. Calligraphy is a form of handwriting. A special pen must be used. Letters are formed using up and down strokes. Old documents usually are written in this form. Even today, special documents such as diplomas and certificates are written in calligraphy. So in this writing, in this paragraph, the author basically is teaching you about calligraphy writing. Does not express any opinions and only shares the facts. So it doesn't say, like in the first one that we looked at, writing to persuade, it is recommended. So it doesn't say it is recommended that calligraphy be used for special documents. That's not in there anywhere. It doesn't say at the end, so get a calligraphy pen and learn how to do calligraphy. None of that stuff in there. It's just these are the facts. That's it. So that's writing to inform. Okay, then we have writing to entertain. When an author's chief purpose is to entertain the reader, they will endeavor to keep things as interesting as possible. Things happen in books that are written to entertain, whether in the form of an action-packed plot, inventive characterizations, or sharp dialogue. We find examples of writing to entertain in science fiction, romance, and fantasy. So basically novels. When a writer is attempting to entertain or amuse the reader, they will use a variety of techniques to engage their attention. So they may employ cliffhangers at the end of the chapter to get you to continue reading. They may use humor in their story to have you feel some sort of emotion, or even have characters tell jokes in the story. In the case of a thriller, an action-packed scene may follow an action-packed scene as the drama builds to a crescendo. So, entertainment purposes. So, writing to entertain, an example, his face appeared in the window. Sarah knew he had been the cause of her waking at 3 in the morning. Was this just her imagination? Was she really seeing his shadowy, spooky figure lurking just outside? Crash! Suddenly the window shatters and Sarah bolts from her bedroom to her parents' room. Okay, so the author this is written purely for entertainment. It's not factual, it's made up, it's just somebody trying to get you to basically feel some emotion. So entertaining the reader with a spooky story, trying to create a mood of suspense in the story. So when you're reading this, you might be, on the edge of your seat, or you might be chewing your nails or something like that. It's purely entertainment purposes. Okay, so some of the other purposes that can be identified for writing are to explain. When writers write to explain, they want to tell the reader how to do something or reveal to them how something works. This type of writing is about communicating a method or a process. This is also informative writing. When you're writing to explain something, you're also writing to inform. Writing with the purpose of explaining can be found in instructions, step-by-step guides, procedural outlines, and recipes. So again, basically all facts. Often you will find this type of writing organized into bulleted or numbered points. As it focuses on telling the reader how to do something, often lots of imperatives will be used within the writing. So, get your equipment ready, pour the mix into a bowl, put the mix until all ingredients are combined, pour the batter into muffin tins. It's telling you to do something. So list using imperatives. So we talked about imperatives back in lesson 1. So the imperative is a command or a polite request. So, pour it into a muffin tin, put it in the oven, turn the oven on, or turn the oven on, then put it in the oven or whatever. Just it's telling you to do something. So again, like I said, that's basically informative writing as well. Then writing to describe. Often writers will use words to describe something in more detail than be conveyed in a photograph alone. So looking at a photograph, you see things, but when things are described in words, sometimes it fills in the spaces. We can find lots of descriptive writing in obvious places like short stories, novels, and other forms of fiction where the writer wishes to paint a picture in the reader's imagination. So when you're reading a novel, like as I mentioned before, when we talked about short stories, sometimes a character is really described well so you can picture that character in your head. Or the setting is described using lots of adjectives so you can picture that in your head as well. We can also find lots of writing with purpose of description in nonfiction too, in product descriptions or descriptive essays, for example. In the case of fiction writing, which describes, the reader will notice the writer using a lot of sensory details in the text. Our senses are how we perceive the world, and to describe their imaginary world, writers will draw heavily on language that appeals to these senses. In both fiction and nonfiction, readers will notice the writer will rely heavily on adjectives in their writing. Okay, so that's a little bit about purpose. The other thing when we're writing anything, we have to keep our purpose in mind. What are we writing for? Are we writing a letter to someone? Are we writing a set of instructions for someone? Are we writing an information paragraph about something that we want somebody to learn about? So we need to think about our purpose so that we make sure that we put everything in there that we need. The other thing we need to think about when we're writing is the audience. Who are we writing for? Whether you've thought about it consciously or not, you always write to an audience. So you're always writing for someone. It could be yourself, it could be your teacher, it could be a friend. Sometimes your audience is a very generalized group of readers. Sometimes you know the individuals who compose the audience, and sometimes you write for yourself. Keeping your audience in mind while you write can help you make good decisions about what material to include, how to organize your ideas, and how best to support your argument. So when you're writing for school, you might say, well, isn't my instructor my audience? Your instructors read and grade your essays, and you want to keep their needs and perspectives in mind when you write. However, when you write an essay with only your instructor in mind, you might not say as much as you should or say it as clearly as you should because you assume that the person grading it knows more than you do and will fill in the gaps. This leaves it up to the instructor to decide what you are really saying, and your instructor might decide differently than you expect. For example, your instructor might decide that those gaps show that you don't know and understand material. So you need to still put in as much information as you can. Don't assume that your reader knows. Thinking about your audience differently can improve your writing, especially in terms of how clearly you express your argument. The clearer your points are, the more likely you are to have a strong essay. How do I identify my audience and what they want from me? So trying to figure out who your audience is. Use the following questions to help you identify your audience and what you can do to address their wants and needs. So ask yourself first, who is my audience? Okay, who are you writing for? You might say, well, my instructor. But you have to remember that maybe your instructor is going to give it to somebody else to read, or maybe somebody else will read it before your instructor reads it. Might you have more than one audience? If so, how many audiences do you have? List them. Does your assignment itself give any clues about your audience? So in lesson 3, when you had to write a formal email, it gives you options of who to write your formal email to. So you can write to your instructor, you can write to your boss, or you can write to the head of some organization that you're applying for a job with. So there's 3 different audiences there. So your assignment might tell you who your audience is. Your audience is still going to be your teacher, but you have to do your writing as if you were writing to that person, not your teacher. What does your audience need? What do they want? What do they value? What is most important to them? What are they least likely to care about? What kinds of organization would best help your audience understand and appreciate your argument? So do you need to list facts? Do you need to try to persuade? What are you going to do? Do you need to entertain them? What do you have to say, or what are you doing in your research that might surprise your audience? Is there anything new? What do you want your audience to think, learn, or assume about you? And what impression do you want your writing or your research to convey? So those are some things to think about when you're doing your writing. Okay, text, tone, audience, and purpose. So text is, what kind of writing is it? Okay, so is it a narrative, so a short story, an evaluation of someone, an explanation of something, a review, a diary, a letter, or whatever. So your assignment might say, write a review of, write a book review of, some book that you've read. It might say, write a diary entry, or write an advice segment for somebody, or write an advertisement for this book, something like that. So you have to figure out what kind of text you're writing. Then the tone, is the tone of the text formal, polite, or more informal, so familiar or chatty? So again, this is where you have to think of your audience. Formal writing is used when the text is aimed at a wide audience, so not one or two specific people. So, for example, if you're writing a news article, lots of different people are going to read that news article. Or if the writer doesn't know the reader and wants to impress him or her. Can you think of some examples of formal writing? So we already looked at one, the formal email. Writing a short story, writing a news article. We already looked at those types of writing. Writing a resume. So formal writing. Informal writing is quite easy to create, but should only be used for specific audiences. It can feature slang expressions that might not be understood by everyone, phonetic spelling, conversational tone where the writer writes as they might talk. So that's informal writing you might find in like a Facebook post or a message to a friend. Your audience. Who is the text aimed at? Who are you writing for? Adults, children, teenagers, pensioners, men, women, people with a specific interest, parents, peers, or professionals. Who? And then your purpose, why has the text been written? So why are you writing? Are you writing to argue your point of view, or to explain, to evaluate, to persuade, to instruct, to entertain, to inform, to describe, to analyze, to recount? What is the writer trying to do? So those are all things to think about. So here is, an example. So a text. We're going to identify the tone, the audience, and the purpose. So an example of a text is an email to a friend. So we've got an email to a friend about a party you're having. So if it's an email to a friend, the tone is going to be informal. If you're writing an email. The audience, it says a friend. And the purpose of the text is to invite. It's also to inform, because you want to let them know about your party. Okay, next one, a letter of complaint to Michelle. So it's a letter of complaint. Most of the times when we're writing a letter of complaint, it's formal. We're writing a letter of complaint to a business of some sort. Okay, the audience, well, it says there to Michelle, so it's Michelle. And the purpose is, a letter of complaint is to complain. Or in this case, like if we look at PIE, persuade, inform, or entertain, it would be to inform. So you want to inform them about a situation or something that's not working or whatever. The next one is a news article about the election results. So it's a news article about the election results. So if it's a news article, then obviously it's going to be formal. And your audience is the public. And that public, it could be anyone. It could be adults, teenagers, pensioners, children, who knows. And the purpose is to inform because it's you're writing about the election results. You're writing to inform the public about who won the election. A journal entry. So this one, because you're writing it, if it's a journal entry, you're writing it basically for yourself. So of course, then it's going to be informal. And the audience is you. Journals are written for yourself, unless you're doing it for a school course, and then it might be your teacher, your instructor. And the purpose, it could be to entertain, depending on what it is you're writing about. Maybe something that you want to remember. It might be, it's not going to be to persuade, because when you write a journal entry, you're generally not trying to persuade yourself to do something. It might be to inform for later on, writing down some information for later on. If we look back up here at the chart, purpose, to argue, to explain, to evaluate, to persuade, to instruct, to entertain, to inform, to describe, to analyze, to recount. So it might be to recount, so you might want to talk about something that happened that day in your journal. This happened to me today, and you might try to write it down and try to figure out what to do about it. A poster about the effects of smoking. So the text is a poster, and it's about the effects of smoking. So it would be formal, because it's a poster, and posters are usually meant for the public. That would be the audience, and the purpose would be to inform, because you want people to learn about the effects of smoking. Okay, so again, think about all of this when you have to write something. So like when we talked about the formal email, we talked about who it's going to, and the tone that you should be using is formal, who your audience is going to be, the purpose, and all that stuff. So think about anytime you're writing anything, think about those 4 things. So purpose, the reason or goal that you have for writing about your topic, and audience, the specific people that you are writing for. And again, if it's something for school, don't focus on it being your audience being your teacher. Okay, think about if the instructions say write a formal email to your employer, so then you have to get that in your head that this is going to your employer, not your teacher, so that you write it the way you should be writing it. Okay, some practice with audience and purpose. Identify the correct audience and purpose for each excerpt. So these are some ideas of who your audience could be: a town council, the general public, homeowners, home internet users, parents of young children, high school students, users of public transport, pregnant women, internet users, whatever. And your purposes: to inform, to persuade, to entertain, or explain. So basically, PIE. So a politician's speech about how homes should be provided to families who cannot afford them. So the audience would be politicians talk to the public. So basically the general public. Talking about homes should be provided to families who cannot afford them. So you're not going to put in homeowners, because this is about people who can't afford to buy their homes. So it goes to basically to the general public. The purpose of the speech is to persuade. Okay, so it's a politician's speech, and like I said, politicians' speech are basically written to persuade. They want you to vote for them, or they want you to do something. So this is to persuade people about how homes should be provided to families who cannot afford them. So persuade, oh my gosh, the council or whatever to provide homes to families who can't afford them. Okay, number 2, a poem about a pack rat, who is a person who refuses to throw things away, even things that most people would consider garbage. So it's a poem, and the poem is meant to entertain. Okay, and the audience could be, basically it could be anyone, but it's going to be for poetry readers. It might be for students in school, or it might be meant for pack rats. Okay, so it could be a variety of audiences there. Your child is eligible for the H1N1 swine flu vaccine. Please phone your local health center to book an appointment. Evidence shows that children under 5 are most seriously affected by the H1N1 virus, and hospitalization is a serious risk. So it's the notice or whatever says your child, so the audience would be parents and possibly grandparents and guardians. Okay, and the purpose is to persuade. Okay, it's eligible for the H1N1 swine flu vaccine, so they want you to, and then please phone your local health center, so they're telling you what to do to book an appointment. So they're trying to persuade you to get your child in for the swine flu vaccine. And then presenting facts. We talked about sometimes when your purpose is to persuade, they will present you with facts. And the fact is that evidence shows that children under 5 are most seriously affected by the H1N1 virus, and hospitalization is a serious risk. So they're putting in facts there to help persuade you to get the vaccine. Number 4, an instructional booklet describing how to operate a smartphone. So the audience would be smartphone users. Or smartphone owners. And the purpose is to inform. It's to tell you how to operate a smartphone. Number 5, an internet ad banner telling you to click for a free gift. The audience would be, it's an internet ad banner, so it would be internet users. You can't say the general public, because not all the general public uses the internet. So it's got to be specific, internet users. And the purpose, to persuade. Okay, trying to get you to click for a free gift. A free gift might be garbage, who knows, but it wants you to click. A script for community play about a girl who rescues a stray dog. The audience would be community members, because it's for a community play. Could be adults, children, teenagers, whatever. And then it's a school play, or a play, sorry, so it's to entertain. That would be the purpose. Okay, so that then brings us to key question. That's support questions, all right. Let's find my key questions down here. Right here. Key question 15, read the following headlines. Indicate the most likely audience and purpose for each topic, headline listed below. So an internet ad banner, we just did this one. An internet ad banner telling you to click for a free iPhone. The audience would be internet users, and the purpose, to persuade. Okay, so write that down. A picture book about a dog that gets lost on a family vacation and has to find his way home. It's a picture book. So the audience would be kids, and the purpose, to entertain. Okay, so take your time with that key question, and then when we meet again on Wednesday, we will take a look at key questions 16 and 17. We'll be finishing up lesson 4 on Wednesday.